Is this on? Yeah? Hi, I'm Larry Glenz, and what I just heard right there, not my kid, that was me, not my kid. And that was a while back. I mean, I think Kevin, my son Kevin, was on the early crest of the wave here. Right now, it's just gotten so big. And certainly, I'm not an expert on substance abuse, or substance use disorders is the correct term, I think. Well, really, all I've got is a story, and that seems to help somehow. And so, when my boy went out to Iowa on his last rehab, and he looked like he was, he was away from New York. He looked like he was going to be all right. I started writing the book, and it's this book, Forgiving Kevin, and I didn't have a title for it then. And it was going to be a success story, about the all-American boy who fell into the pit of drug addiction and pulled himself out to become a counselor for others and to help others and to be an example. And in the last relapse, that ended that. And I just knew I had to finish that book, and the rest of that book kind of poured out of me. And I had just retired from teaching, and I'd never written a book before or since. But that one just kind of flowed out of me. So since that, I've had the opportunity to speak, because I've been a high school teacher for so long. I was a history teacher for 36 years, and I'm still coaching. I'm still a part of the Lynbrook lacrosse team 46 consecutive years in a row. So I'm still working with kids, and I like talking to them, and I like their parents too. That's some of you here. So let me get started with the story here. Could you click that for me? Okay, so Kevin went to Lynbrook High School where I taught, and he was actually a learning disabled kid, meaning that he was labeled learning disabled because he didn't see the words on the page the same way most people see it, so he had trouble reading. When you have trouble reading, you're learning disabled. He overcame that with a lot of help from special ed teachers, and both his parents were teachers, and both his parents were coaches, and he grew up on my sideline, and the Lynbrook players, whether it be football, wrestling, lacrosse, the three sports that I coached while I was there, they were his real life heroes. And he wanted to be a great student athlete. And despite that learning disability, and with all the help that special ed gives you and so forth, he always had his homework done. He was always pretty much prepared for a test. And so he was a good student. And he was a real good athlete. He was the running back for the football team. He was a good wrestler, and in lacrosse he was especially good, and so were we. Could you click that? Yeah. There we go. Okay, so Kevin, in Kevin's junior and senior year, Lynbrook won the New York State Championship, and Kevin was the guy who ran the offense from behind the cage, and we had a lot of good players. You don't win without it, but we probably wouldn't have won without him either, because he was the guy who fed the ball. He set all sorts of records, and those 2 years there, Kevin played for the team for 4 years, but those 2 years we won the states, Lynbrook was lit up then. You know what I mean? We had big posters in front of all the players' houses that say a New York State champ lives here, They had parties, and we were getting our picture taken with all the politicians, and we had all sorts of great things. I mean, the community really came out big. For the two of us, because we actually moved Kevin into Lynbrook after his mom and I split up. So he wanted to come to Lynbrook, and he did. And my oldest boy, Matt, stayed at Calhoun in Merrick and graduated from there. But Kevin wanted to do this, and it was working out great. Could you click that again? That's my favorite picture. I got that on the back of the book. That's the last game Kevin played for Lynbrook. That's the New York State Championship in the senior year. And if you would have asked me at that point, that day right there, if life wasn't perfect for me and my boy, I'd say you're out of your mind. This is the most beautiful world that there ever is. And Kevin was as popular in school as you can get. You know, he had tons of friends. His teachers loved him. He was one of those finalists for the prom king, and he had a fantastic experience there. You know, a fantastic experience. And so did I, doing that. And so here we were, state champs, and he was getting Division I scholarships, and we were picking which one we should, you know, where are we going to send Kevin? And because he had a learning disability, we kind of worried about him going away. So we carefully chose. Could you click again? We carefully chose the University of Massachusetts. One more time. Because the guy with him right there is Mr. John Cannella, happens to be the first Lynbrook lacrosse coach in 1957. And he's the guy who hired me in 1972 for Lynbrook. And his son, he had 5 sons, and his 5th son is the coach of UMass. And he was a player for me, Greg Cannella. So we carefully chose where he was going to go, because I love Greg Cannella. I've known him since he's a little boy, and I knew what kind of coach he was. I knew what kind of player he was for me. He was an All-American player. He played the same position that Kevin played, behind the cage, the X-Man. And this was a perfect spot, and I had the perfect guy. Now, they used the word perfect a lot because everything was perfect. Everything was perfect. One more. But he became addicted to Oxycontin during his junior year at UMass. I blame UMass not at all. And before we move past that, I didn't know what Oxycontin was. Nobody, I don't think, becomes an addict on Oxycontin first. It seems to me, you know, and I swear I'm not an expert on this, I'm just an observer as a father. It seems to me, you know, that kids start drinking. I grew up on Long Island, I grew up in Freeport. If you grow up here, it seems to me you're going to, and you play sports and you're, I don't know what you call it, a regular guy, something. It seems like you're going to do a little bit of drinking, you're going to try that. And these days you'd probably try smoking some pot. And if people ask me, was Kevin doing drugs in high school? When he was in high school, nobody asked me that, but if they did, I'd say, I don't know, maybe, probably, I know his friends. I've been around the block a little bit, I know what high school kids do. I'm not blind to that, you know? And if you would have said, was he smoking pot, I'd say, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, probably, I don't know. Now, why wasn't I more concerned? Everything was going great. Everything was going great. Kevin was happy. He was popular. He was getting scholarships. We were winning championships. Everything was great. So I figured if he was, well, he'll get over it like everybody else does. You know what I mean? He'll get through it. What I didn't realize, what I didn't think about at that time was that some people are hardwired for addiction. Some people aren't. Some people can drink, take it or leave it. Pot, take it or leave it. You know, maybe some other drug, take it or leave it. And there are others that once they have a drink, they're going to drink the rest of their life, and they're going to drink heavy, and the same would be true for these drugs. They're different. And if I examine my family and Kevin's whole family, both sides of his family, we were full of those people, you know? We were full of alcoholics and drug addicts, to tell you the truth. Why didn't I think Kevin was possibly in danger? I wish I had a good exam. I wish I had a good answer. I didn't think about it because everything was going good. So when Kevin got addicted to Oxycontin, well, first of all, you didn't know for a while. You know, you knew that there was something wrong because he didn't quite seem the same, and he was dropping subjects at UMass. And then finally, after a bunch of things like money was missing from his mother's house, money was missing from my house, he's dropping the subjects, and then finally I get the call from the coach. And he says, look, coach, he called me coach, right? He says, look, coach, I don't know what's the matter with him, to tell you the truth, but he's not doing well in the, this was before the season started. This is like winter workouts, fall workouts. He's not coming in, he's coming in at the end, and he looks awful, and he doesn't seem the same. He says, look, I suspect it's drugs, he says to me, but I don't know, to tell you the truth, but I feel like I gotta tell you. And I'll tell you the truth, I knew something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. Of course, I suspected possibly that, you know, but I didn't know the type of drugs this was. You know, I mean, was he drinking, smoking pot? Well, you know, you could live with that somehow, but I didn't know what Oxycontin was. And so, you know, when I heard that, I knew something was wrong. And I'll tell you the truth, I don't think at that point I had cried for, I don't know, 30 years or something. And I sat down and I cried for like the whole night and fell asleep because I knew this was it, and I didn't have a grip on what it was, you know? And so now I had to find out. Now, how was I going to find out? I know his friends. I was their coach. I was their teacher too, you know? So I'm gonna hunt them down. I'm gonna say, what's the matter with Kevin? What's the matter with Kevin? There's something wrong with Kevin. Kevin's doing drugs. What's Kevin doing? What's Kevin doing? Now, you know, I can be pretty intimidating on a kid, but kids don't want to give up their friend much, you know? I mean, they're not real good about telling the father that, yeah, he's got a drug problem or something like that. But you keep going at him, you know? I take him for rides in my car and stuff like that, you know? It seems like I could get something out of him. And it wasn't really until I scared his girlfriend. I took his girlfriend to breakfast, and I got her crying and stuff. But she came up with it. She says he's doing painkillers. Painkillers? What the hell are painkillers? What are painkillers? He's doing OCs. He's doing oxys. Still didn't know. Then they said Oxycontin. The only thing I had heard about it, I heard that Rush Limbaugh was addicted to Oxycontin. That was the only time I had heard about that. You know, and so now I say, okay, well, at least we got something here. I got on the computer, which I wasn't very good at, and I got on the computer and I'm looking up Oxycontin and getting scared when I read about it. And then I contacted LICAD, Long Island Council for Alcoholism and Drug Dependency, LICAD, and I got to go over to, it was in Mineola, I got to go over there and I said, look, my son Kevin is addicted to Oxycontin. Any advice, you know? And he said, well, Mr. Glenz, this is terrible. He says it's as bad as it gets. Opiates, and this is the strongest of the over-the-counter opiates. Look, nothing good can happen to your son while he's addicted to these opiates. It doesn't matter if he graduates college. It doesn't matter if he plays lacrosse. Nothing matters except for that he gets clean. So I said, okay, I'll take care of that. You know, I mean, I know it's my son. I mean, I got a good relationship with the son. I'm good with kids. I'll take care of that. All I needed to know what it was. I'll fix it. Don't you worry about it, you know? So I get pamphlets from Like Hatton on how to run an intervention. Could you click again? Yeah, oh, there's the Oxycontin. Oxycontin doesn't look too scary, right? There's nothing scary about that picture. And so I learned how to do an intervention. You can see I have the dates. It was just after Christmas, so I knew I was getting this done. I had a bed prepared at a rehab out east, but I had to get everybody together. I had his college coach, his high school coaches. I had his mother and his and friends of the family that he most respects. I had to set everybody up here, and I knew on Christmas when I'm with him that I was doing this, and I had to keep it hush hush because I had to do this the right way. I had to get the intervention done. And so we had the intervention in my house. I had my other son, Matthew, who's 5 years older than Kevin and didn't have a drug problem. And I had him bring him over supposedly for dinner, but we were ambushing him with all these guys. And we had this big Christmas tree right next to the front door. And when he comes in, he can't see over here. And he says, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" And all of a sudden, he turns around the Christmas tree. And he sees all these people here, and he sees his college coach there, And he says, "What's going on here? What's going on here?" He said, "Kevin, I want you to sit down. We know about your drug abuse. We know about Oxycontin. We all love you, and we all want to talk to you and tell you. And we ask you not to speak until the end, okay?" And everyone spoke about how much they love him and how he's always been the greatest kid, and he's always been the greatest kid, and how scared they are for him and how much they want him to go to rehab tomorrow in the morning. And he loved every one of these people. And they all talked, and they got up and talked, and Kevin didn't say anything, didn't say a word. All he did was glare at me. If he could have burned a hole right through me with his eyes. He was so angry, so angry that he didn't even listen to what people were saying. And then I was the last one to speak, and I said to him, "Okay, you've heard everybody. We got a bed for you in the morning, Kevin. We'll take you to the rehab. It'll be a 30-day program. It just happened to be on the semester break between colleges. You will finish the 30-day program, and you will go back to UMass, and you'll go to meetings, and you'll be on the team. You'll tell everybody about your condition, and you'll be able to play, and you'll be clean, and everything will be good." So I thought it was that easy. And, he didn't want to go. As a matter of fact, he got up, he said, "Look, I tried this stuff, but I'm not a drug addict. You know what drug addicts look like? I'm not a drug addict. Believe me, I'm not a drug addict. Okay, I tried some stuff. I haven't been doing it at all. My father's a control freak. My father's got to have everything his own way. If my father says I got to go to rehab, I got to go to rehab. I don't have to go to rehab. I don't have to do anything." I couldn't believe it. I said, "Well, Kevin, you go to rehab." He says, "I'm not going." I said, "Well, then you're not going back to school." He said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I've got your car, right? I own your car. Matter of fact, I own your phone. I pay your tuition. I've got all this leverage that they told me how to use, And, he still said he wasn't going to go. And then, I was blown away that he wasn't going. "Oh, thank you for saving me." But then each one of these people he loves takes them downstairs and talks to them individually, one-on-one. They're really trying. And they would come up, as they come up, and they say, "Hey, Larry, are you sure?" I said, am I sure what? Am I sure that he's addicted to Oxycontin? They go, "Yeah. Because he seems fine, he talks like he's fine." Well, then he's the best actor in the whole world. He's got you convinced too? He's got you convinced he's not doing anything? Because I knew he was. But he was a good actor. And so, it looked like it had failed, but then his girlfriend stayed on the couch in my living room that night, and in the morning, Kevin says, "Okay, I'll go." And the three of us, I kept his girlfriend between us because I didn't want him to change his mind. And we took him there. It's kind of a long story there, but he did go to rehab. And when he came out, he's going back to school. He tells the whole team, now Kevin's one of the best players. Kevin's one of the best players on the team. And he's telling them, look, I've been a drug addict, and I've been to rehab, and I can't drink, and I can't smoke pot, and I can't do any intoxicants whatsoever, and I'm gonna be the best teammate that you've got. And, can you click that? And he was good, you know, and we were so proud of him. We were so proud of him, and he was, you know, he was the second high scorer on the team, and he was all East Coast, and he was all New England, and he was athlete of the week, and he was all these things, and he's scoring goals in big games against, you know, I was the Lindbergh coach. I moved all my games off of Saturday, and I went up to see him play at Yale and down in North Carolina and out to Ohio State and all over the place, and then would take him out to dinner afterwards, and so proud of him. We're so proud of him. He's beat the hardest addiction that there is, you know, and it's all great. It's all great. We're doing it. I knew I could do this, you know what I mean? I know I'm the kind of guy who can do this, right? And this is Kevin's last game. I had this picture, so I use it. Those are the seniors, and Kevin's the second from the left. He's number 11, best looking one there. And so on this day, Kevin had 4 goals and 3 assists on his last game, and they have a party at UMass for the seniors and their parents. And they're all over 21 now, and so they have a big keg at the party. And I see Kevin, you know, walking up to the keg with a big red cup, pouring himself a beer. I said, Kevin, what do you think you're doing? He says, I think I'm having a beer with my buddies. Dad, stop it right now. He says, don't think I'm not going to have a beer the rest of my life, okay? Because that's ridiculous. He says, I'm going to have a beer. I'm not going to go back on Oxycontin. I'm not going to do anything. I said, Kevin, you know what they said. If you try to get high on beer, you'll be back at your drug of choice in no time. He said, I don't care what they say. I don't care what they say. I'm not going to go back on the drug and just get out of my way. And I was foolish enough to knock the beer out of his hand, which in my family usually causes a face-to-face, like you're going to go and being wrestlers that we are. You usually do go, and that's not something we're proud of, but was what was about to happen when my wife got in between the two of us and dragged me out of there. And I got back in the car to drive back to Long Island, and it seemed like the longest drive ever. And I remember saying to myself, I just hope that they're wrong. That the drug counselors are wrong. Because the drug counselors were clear. If he started drinking or smoking pot, he was going to be back on the opiates in no time at all. That's what they said. Now, I mean, I got to admit, I was new at this at the time. It seemed a little drastic to me that a 21-year-old guy is never going to be able to have a beer the rest of his life. Seemed a little bit extreme, but they told me that, so I believed it, so that's why I tried to stop them. And they know what they're talking about. Please. Within 3 months, he was addicted to heroin. Now, that looks different than that pill, right? That's skeevy looking. That's bad looking stuff, you know. And I mean, you're gonna tie your arm up, and you're gonna heat that stuff in a spoon, and you're gonna withdraw it in a syringe, and you're gonna take the syringe and plunge it into a vein in your arm. And I remember saying to Kevin, you know, at one point, because everything I know about Kevin's drug use, I learned from him during his periods of recovery. This is the beginning of 7 years I'm describing, you know, of a lot of this. And I remember saying to him, I go, look, Kev, okay, with the pill, you chopped the pill up and you snorted it through a straw and you got addicted and stuff. I said, but when when you put the needle in your arm, I mean, you must have known, right? You must have known you're sliding right into hell from here. You know, you're a mainline heroin addict. And he was clean, sober, and in good shape when he told me, hey, Dad, you don't understand. You don't understand. When you're jonesing on this stuff, when you don't get it, you know, he explained like the first day you just can't think of anything else. The first day you're just kind of twisting in your skin and you can't think of anything else except for how to get it. You know, he said, in the second day you are vomiting, you're nauseous and you're dope sick here. But the third day you got pains in your joints and in your back and stuff like this. And you curl up in a like a fetal position, and all you do is think about getting it. And to get it, you got to get the money first. So you're going to steal somewhere, and then you got to go find who's got it, and you got to get it. And he says, the needle. He says, when I'm jonesing, I would have stuck the needle straight in my eye if I thought it would get me high. I wasn't scared of the needle. I was scared of not getting the dope. You know, I mean, that's what scared him. And heroin was more bang for the buck. You know, it's cheaper. So it was a natural, and it is a natural move from OxyContin. Now remember, he didn't, people ask me this, he didn't get addicted to OxyContin because he had a sports injury and they gave him OxyContin and then he couldn't get off of it. He was interested in getting high, you know, and he had told me, I think I forgot to tell you that part when I was back on him in high school. He had told me that in his senior year, he smoked pot every day at lunch with his buddies who were also good athletes. At one of their friends' house, in Lynbrook, you could go off campus and for lunch, and so they were smoking pot every day. I say, you were smoking pot every day in high school? He said, yeah. Now remember, all this comes during the periods of recovery, because in the periods of recovery, he really does want to get clean, but he was hardwired for it, you know. So it never left. He would tell me, Dad, and while he's clean, he'd say, I go to bed and I dream that I shot up. I dream that I shot up. Every night it seems like this happens, and then I wake up and I know I didn't, but I'm thinking about it, you know, and then I get through the day, and, you know, somehow I get through the day and stuff, and then I dream about it again the next night. He says, it haunts me all the time. He says, I can't tell you, Dad, this is while he's clean. I can't tell you, Dad, that if somebody waved this stuff in front of my nose, that I'd be able to say no. And I'm saying, well, I like when he's honest, and he's honest when he's in recovery. But what he's saying is scaring the hell out of me, you know? It's like, come on, you sure you can? You can say no. You can say no. He goes, I don't know. Yeah, okay. He said, you know, because I'm telling him he can say no. He goes, yeah, okay, I can say no. But the truth is, he couldn't. He couldn't, and somebody is going to wait. If they know that you are in on this sport, yeah, they're gonna come with you. They're gonna come, and they always seem to do it, and he always relapsed. So now I got a heroin addict for a son, and there's basically two theories, and I'm going to go to every rehab, and I'm going to find out. Like I said, I'll fix this. I'm a guy who can fix this. So there's two theories. First theory is the one that I already knew from the drug, because I was going to the drug parent meetings for the drug rehabs. And I said, I've got to fix it. I got to use my leverage to get him in a rehab, because nothing good can happen while he's on the drug. So I got to get him in a rehab. So I'll use everything I got. If I could chain him and drag him, I'd do it. But I got to use my leverage. I got to take school away. I got to take cars away. I got to take, you know, I kick him out of the house. But after I remarried, he moved in with his mom, and his moms don't kick. Well, his mom does. You don't kick him out of the house, you know. You don't. You try everything else, but you won't kick him out of the house. I had some leverage on him. I got him back into rehab with help. I got him back into rehab a bunch of times. Always a struggle. Never really wanting to go, you know. And the other theory, if you have a drug-addicted kid, is the one I learned at Al-Anon, which is the 12-step program for the families and friends of the addict or alcoholic. And that says you don't have the power to cure your son's disease. They have they call it the 3 C's. They said, you didn't cause it, meaning me, you didn't cause it, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. Now, I didn't like to hear that, because I'd like to think I can. But I'm glad somebody told me that now that I don't have them anymore. You know, because the parents I meet, and I meet a lot of them, they can't get over the guilt. You know, you can't get over the guilt. You lose a son this way, lose anybody this way, the guilt rushes through you like what you could have done different. Like, it doesn't matter how much you did, it's that you didn't get it done, and that's all you can think of. You know, so yeah, I'm glad at least I heard that it wasn't my fault. I didn't cause it, I couldn't cure it, and I couldn't control it. One more, yeah. So now I'm on I call it the hamster wheel. You know, you're fighting to get him back into rehab. You get him into rehab, you spend the money, you get him in, and he comes out and he goes to meetings for a while, and within like 3 months he's using again. So it's rehab, recovery, and then there's a relapse. And the relapses feel like death. They feel like death to the parent. You know, like, and you're waiting, you know, every phone call seems like it's going to be a scary phone call or stuff like that. And then you fight and try to get them back into rehab, and you get them back into rehab again, and you go through it again. 30 days doesn't seem like enough. Look, I don't know that kind of, I'm not an expert on that, but 30 days doesn't seem to work. He's been in enough of them. I've seen other people in enough of them. Seems like it's got to be something a lot longer. And 30 days is expensive enough. You start talking about putting him in for 90 days, you can bankrupt a family quick. Particularly, there's no guarantee he's not going to do it again. He almost is guaranteed he is. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for a parent. Yeah, one more. Okay, so the last rehab, that's Kevin in the middle, and his cousin Rob is on the left. And Rob came out from Iowa. There was a flood in Iowa, and he was on the Mississippi, and he came back to New York, where his big Irish family is, and he found out that Kevin was an addict and had been an addict now for that point for 6 years. And Kevin was his favorite nephew favorite cousin, and he couldn't believe. Now, he was out of the Marines, he was 40 years old, and he says, why don't we bring him to Iowa? Maybe it's New York, maybe it's the triggers that make you use, maybe it's New York. You get him into Iowa. Iowa's pretty different from New York, right? Get him into Iowa, and he can, after we got good rehabs in Iowa, Rob said, he says, and then he could live with me. You know, I'll get him a job, and Rob's a good guy. Rob's a, you know, ex-Marine, and he's a tough guy, and he loves Kevin. And I was saying, yeah, but he won't go. You know, he won't go. And he says, well, we could ask him, right? Yeah, why don't we ask him? Let's bring him in here. Hey, Kev, how would you like to go to rehab in Iowa, and then when you get out, live with Rob and his wife Marla, live with Rob and Marla, and start a new life in Iowa? How would you like to do that? He says, okay, I'll go. What? Yeah, you'll go? We'll get you on a plane tomorrow. Okay, you'll go. Now, what I didn't know, and I found out from him during his recovery period there, was that Kevin was so strung out that he would tell me this much later, he was in a 3-man group of of addicts that robbed people at ATM machines. One of them had the getaway car. One of them was the lookout for like an easy mark. And one was the mugger who wore a mask. Which one were you, Kevin? He says, I was the mugger. Why were you the mugger? He said, well, I didn't have the car, and I was easily the strongest and the fastest of the three, so yeah, I wore a mask, and he used a stun gun. And he'd come up and hit him under the chin with a stun gun. They dropped to the floor. He took the money, put it in his pocket, they run into the car, they drive straight to the dealer, and they get high. I said, how'd you feel when you did that? He goes, I gotta tell you, I feel awful telling you, I feel awful about it, but at the time, I was just so glad I was gonna get high because I was jonesing again, Now, Kevin, if you knew Kevin in high school, you can't picture Kevin doing a crime like that. It's almost impossible to imagine that my son could be doing that. And in Iowa, things seem to change. I went out and visited. They have different kinds of rehabs. Like the counselors drive tractors in overalls and stuff. I mean, they don't look like a whole different world to me, right? So Kevin seemed like he was really going to make it this time. There was a difference. He wasn't resistant to it, And I remember when he got out of rehab, I was there. I came out to get him out of rehab, and I remember everybody coming up and hugging him, and Kevin, you'll make it, and all this kind of stuff. All these addicts loved Kevin. Everybody loves Kevin. Everybody does, and then he loved him in there, and they were all like, they liked Kevin because he had a New York accent, and he was funny. So now he's living with Rob. He gets himself a job as a waiter. I think he was a lousy waiter, but he got himself a job as a addiction counselor because he had graduated UMass with a social work degree. And he got himself a job as an addiction counselor, not a drug addiction counselor, a gambling addiction counselor. And he didn't have the gambling addiction, right? He had drug addiction, but he didn't have a gambling addiction. So I thought this is great because he's working with addicts and stuff like that. He'll be practicing the 12 steps, and this is good. This is real good. And they told me he was great at it, and I can imagine he was because, Kevin could talk to anybody. He was an easygoing guy. He wasn't a snob in any way. So they said he was great at it. And he even got a job as a lacrosse coach, a college lacrosse coach in Iowa. Now, nobody plays lacrosse in Iowa, but he's a college lacrosse coach for Palmer Chiropractic School. And he was a player coach. So he was really the only one who could play well. He was good, right? So, I mean, he'd play in the game. He used to coach. He'd play in the game. He'd score 7 goals, and they'd win 7-5. You know what I mean? He was having a ball. Everything was good. And he got a girlfriend. You're not supposed to have a girlfriend when you're in recovery. That's kind of one of the rules. Because if you break up, it gets emotional and that causes relapse, they said. But Kevin says, hey, look, don't say a word here. I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking, I live in Iowa, I'm getting a girlfriend. Done. Right? And what was I gonna say? Oh, no, you're not. Right? So, I'm gonna click that one. Yeah, he got a girlfriend. He impregnated her like instantly. And that's my granddaughter, Olivia, who's now 8 years old. I was out there last month in Iowa for Halloween. I'll talk about Olivia later. And one more. Yeah, Kevin died 4 months after Olivia was born. Relapsed. Gone. Now, I don't tell that part. I did write about it in my book extensively, but that was too ugly, too emotional, too awful. too often. But he was gone quick. Could you click again? I do remember I talked to him the night before he died. He had actually overdosed 2 days in a row. Second day killed him. The first day he was rescued, and when Rob called me, Rob called me and told me that Kevin had overdosed. And I called Kevin, and he didn't answer the phone, but he called right back, and he didn't know that I knew. So we talked a little bit, and I said, Kevin, you dodged a bullet last night, huh? I was trying to be non-judgmental, and I wasn't always non-judgmental, I'll tell you that. I used a lot of shame and guilt on him and anger on him and stuff like that. You do that, it's the wrong thing to do, but you do it. And now I'm saying it's going to be okay, Kev. It's going to be okay. This is, this was a slip, but a relapse is part of recovery, and you're going to be okay. He says, yeah, I know. And he said, I got to go. I didn't tell Melanie. Melanie doesn't even know anything yet. I was supposed to pick her up, and I got to go. I said, this is okay, Kev. This is okay. And he says, yeah, I know. I love you, Dad. I say, I love you too, Kev. Those were the last words. And he was gone that night. Okay, so things I learned from it are not what you might expect. They have nothing to do with heroin, right? The first one, I say only the love matters. That sounds a little hokey, but what I'd like to say on that is that for most of those 7 years, I was coming from fear. I was always so scared, and when I get scared, I don't usually get scared. I get angry, I get angry, and I throw that anger out, and how could you do this to your family, and throw the guilt and throw the shame at them, and you've got to stop this, you got to stop this. Then that doesn't work. People tell you it doesn't work, and I had a spiritual path that I was devoted to, and I would pray all the time, and I would get a message all the time that says, just love them anyway, just love them anyway, don't enable them, but love them anyway. Don't judge them, love them anyway. You have no idea what Kevin needs to go through. Just love him anyway. And, it'd be stealing his mother's jewelry, or he'd be committing crimes like I told you about. And I'm supposed to just love him anyway. But, hey, the fear stuff that I did, it didn't work anyway. All the guilt and anger and shame I threw at him made me miserable, made him miserable, made his mother miserable, made his brother miserable, everybody around the story. It makes them miserable. So, and I say to myself now, when people say, what do you regret most? I regret that I fought with him. I fought with him. Verbally mostly, and sometimes physically. I regret that a lot. So the next thing, forgiveness is the key to happiness, I wrote there. Well, because I have a daily spiritual practice, I do practice forgiveness. Thank God I do, because I meet a lot of parents. I meet a lot of parents that are in the same awful club I'm in, and they can't let go of it. They can't. I see them, and they can't. They don't expect to have another good day the rest of their life. They can't get out of bed and stuff like that. And it's. I understand it. But first person I had to forgive was myself. If you would have told me I'd have 7 years to cure my son from an addiction, I tell you I will do it, guaranteed. So I had to forgive myself that no matter what I did, it didn't work. I had to forgive Kevin for having a disease that he could not control. I had to forgive everybody surrounding that story, his mom, his brother, whatever, because we all loved him, and we all would have loved to save him. And we couldn't. It's just, we couldn't get it done. Without forgiveness, the rest of your life is shot. And I see it in people. And I thank God I've got a spiritual program that keeps me strong. And that's the last one here is a connection to a higher power is what gives you strength. Now, look, I'm in a public school and I'm not teaching religion to you or anything like that. I don't mean to be. But the 12 steps are a very spiritual program. That as good as you're ever going to find for anything. And it's not the only one. It is perfect for addicts and alcoholics, but it's not the only one. The strength that I have comes from my connection to my higher power. And that's why I can tell this story. That's why I feel when I'm talking to you like I have Kevin's arm around me right now. His spirit doesn't die, and his spirit is not an addict. And it is powerful. And he loves the fact, I'm sure, that I'm speaking to you now, and we're trying to help people best we can. We try to help them with our book. We try to help them by speaking and stuff like this, and on one-on-one contacts, whenever I get invited to talk to somebody who's got this problem, or the parent of somebody who's got the problem, or whatever, I'm there because that's how I heal. And when you help others heal, you heal yourself. But I got to lighten up for you a little bit here because I got you all really sad right now. So this is my granddaughter. That's Kevin's daughter. When she was 2, she's 8 now. When she was 2, little girls don't like me at all. I don't know. It's some kind of energy. Maybe it's the head or something. I don't even know. But I got 3 granddaughters and I'm having difficulty. But I'll make them all like me. That's her 12. Another one? Okay, that's her. That's in Merrick. That's my ex-wife's pool in Merrick. And next one, and she was 3, and that's her on Halloween. You ever see a better looking kid than that? Is that the best looking kid you ever saw? You know? And another one, yeah, that's really her. Like that's at Jones. I live in Long Beach. That's at Long Beach, and that's the way she talks to me. You know? And that's in Iowa. That's at Chuck E. Cheese. You ever been to Chuck E. Cheese? Pretty cool. And that's on the boardwalk in Long Beach. Now, I bought her that hat. I remember that day real well. I bought that hat, those glasses, that necklace, and I bought her the flute. Never buy a 5-year-old a flute. It was the worst thing I ever did. And another? That's my 3 granddaughters last year. That's my son Matt's got Julia and Lila there, along with Olivia, and the 3 of them are like best friends. And at my ex-wife's house, it says Nanny's house, where cousins become best friends. You know, so that's going well. And one more picture. That's my son Matt with all 3 of them. Olivia's the one on the right with her head tilted back, and Lila and Julia and Matt. That's just this summer. Listen, I got a lot to live for. There's a lot of love in my life. And you can click one more. And you guys have been great. I wrote a book. You don't make any money on books, I found out, especially maybe you make a book, and then if you give one away, you got to sell 17 books to make it up, you know, type of thing. And I give a lot away, but you can buy my book out there, you know, if you so like. And look, you've been a great audience. Like I said, I never know how or why this affects anybody, but you couldn't have been nicer to me, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry and Anthony. If you both have a few minutes, I'd like you to be available for some questions. Anyone that has a question, LaToya has a couple of our SAD students who will go around and pass microphones.
Okay, anybody have any
I
questions?
have a question. When you look back in retrospect, what would you have done differently?
When he was in high school, I would have paid more attention. I would have paid more attention to what he was doing. But to tell you the truth, thinking about that, I don't know if it would have made any difference, you know? I don't know that he would have, I mean, he just would have hit it better or whatever, you know? I think the best answer I could give you was I wouldn't have fought with him. Once I found out he was an addict and I was scared all the time, I fought with him. And it didn't work. And my own higher power told me it wouldn't work. My own higher power told me just keep loving him, don't judge him. You don't know what he needs to go through. So I wouldn't have used the guilt and the shame.
Larry,
Yes, sir.
what do you want people to be thinking about when they walk through the doors tonight, walk out?
What do I want people to be thinking about when they walk out of here? I would like them to think about using as much love on your kid as you possibly can. That every day that you got them, they're yours. For good or bad. You know, love them up. Because, you know, you never know.
Yeah, I'm just going to add something and let you know that one of the things that I've identified, I've probably treated about 1,000 patients in my career. And first of all, there's science upon science that shows that addiction is a disease. It's a disease that's centered in the brain. And some people react very differently to a substance. You have two people and you give them the same substance, and the brain of a person, Larry used the word hardwired, right? We know that there's a genetic component, and we know that that makes them more susceptible. But I will tell you this, what I found in my career with about 1,000 patients is that often drugs and alcohol is not the problem. It's the symptom of the problem. So a lot of my patients that I treated had an underlying mental health condition that was untreated or undiagnosed. In other cases, I've had people who experienced trauma. In other cases, I've had people who had low self-esteem, insecurities, many different reasons. But the point is that people that struggle with the disease of addiction are not bad people that are trying to be good people. They're sick people that need to get well. If you listen to the description, it's like textbook. This kid was a good kid. When you're in the grips of addiction, you do things way beyond who you are as a person. The grips of addiction is so strong that it makes you violate all the morals and values that you had go out the window.
How do we help our children come to us? Because we all have struggles throughout our lives, all of us. So because we have a crisis in our hands right now, and it's so accessible, how do we teach our children that it's okay to come to us? How do we teach them that we're here to help them?
What I can tell you is that we did a survey a few years ago, and we took young kids, I think between the ages of 12 and 16, and we had probably a sample size of about 400 kids, and we broke them down into focus groups, and we asked them 3 questions. If you had a problem, who would you go to? Who wouldn't you go to? And what would the obstacles be? You know who was at the top of the list to who they wouldn't go to? The parents. Now, the neighbor's kid would come to you, right? But your kid wouldn't come to you. And who was at the top of the list, believe it or not, were coaches. Coaches were near the top of the list of where people would go, right? So the answer to your question, in my opinion, is there is a natural separation that happens, right? When a kid becomes 12, 13, 14, they start launching and they start separating, right? Mom, drop me off here, don't bring me all the way to the school. It's just a natural occurrence that happens. What I would say is the best thing is being able to keep the lines of communication open. And, you know, Larry talked about when he experienced the fear, his reaction to fear is such a natural reaction. I'm going to take hold of this and I'm going to fix this. It's a balancing act. The best thing I can say to a parent is if you go to like Partnership for Drug-Free America, if you go, there's a whole plethora of places where you can get information on how best to communicate with kids, because it is not an easy task. No matter what, there's a 25, 30-year difference between you and your kids. You know, there's a plaque I have in my house. It says, I got it in Italy. It says at 3 years old, Daddy knew everything. At 8 years old, Daddy knew a lot. At 12 years old, there were some things that Daddy didn't know. At 15 years old, Daddy didn't know squat. At 20 years old, sometimes I ask Daddy for advice. And this is the natural progression that happens. So what I would say to you is I would say that keeping the lines of communication open is really important. I was talking to someone outside. Well, my kid actually went to UMass. My son and my daughter went to school locally over here. And I will tell you that what I didn't plan on, because we were very hands-on parents, when my kid got to school, I'd swear he said, "Freedom!" And he went nuts. And I saw the grades go down. This is a kid that was in Chaminade. This was a kid that did real well in school. And right away I saw it. I said, okay, the first semester is on me. I'm going to give you a learning curve. If it happens again, you're out. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up having to pull him out because he couldn't deal with that freedom. And where does that come from? That comes from me and my wife being very involved. So it's that balancing act, right, of giving them the ability to make some choices and some decisions, because they're going to have to make those choices. So it's not an exact science. It's different for each case, but those would be some of the thoughts I would have.
Somebody asked before, Mr. Glenz, what you would do differently. There's a bunch of kids in here.
Where is this coming from?
I'm right here.
You still can't find it.
Hi.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's a bunch of kids in here, and I'm wondering what you think your son's friends would say that they would do differently, how they would react in a situation where I'm sure they feel the same kind of feeling as well. What would be the message to the kids when they're seeing their friends in these situations and how they should react?
They should recognize they're in a really dangerous world that I was never in at my age. You know, I mean, when I was a kid, they're in a really dangerous world. And, you know, the idea of kids getting high, that seemed to be always there. But all the things that kill you weren't there, you know? So now I think they've got to be educated by people that they'll believe, you know, people that they'll believe. And it was interesting that they don't listen to parents and they listen to coaches. You know, being both, I'd say that's absolutely true. Because, you know, if a kid came to me and he was a great player, or even if he was just a player, I could be really non-judgmental. But if it was my kid, I don't think that, I think it's like parents are like almost naturally judgmental, you know, I mean, it's almost guaranteed. That's why they wouldn't go to him. But also I'm thinking about, now that they're educated, because you know, in 2003, when Kevin became addicted, that was, nobody ever heard of a Lynbrook kid dying of heroin. Well, that's not true, actually. But not a lot, it wasn't common, you know, and now they're in an epidemic and they know they're in an epidemic. They got to take care of each other. You know, these kids got to take care of each other. They got to help each other out. They've been educated. They're in a dangerous world. I don't know if that works, though.
One thing I'd add also is that it's for both the kids and for the parents, please do not poo-poo the idea of alcohol and marijuana. Because I will tell you, 100% of the heroin addicts that I dealt with, that I've treated, did not start with heroin. 100%. And a very, very high percentage started with alcohol and marijuana. And when you introduce alcohol or marijuana to a brain that's not fully developed, and we know the male brain doesn't develop till the mid-20s, and a female brain early 20s, when you introduce alcohol or marijuana at those ages, the marijuana of today is not the marijuana of the 70s. If you look at the THC count, which is the part that gets you high, in the 70s it was about 3%. Now we're seeing marijuana with 12%. And now they have this thing called dabbing, where they're taking the resin off of it, they're creating a wax, and they put a little dab, they call it dabbing, in a vape pen. It's 86% THC. The vape pens and the vaping, let me tell you, it's out of control. So that's why I started off when I talked about up there, about empower yourself with information, know what you're up against. Anyone else?
What would be the best thing to do if someone offered you a drug?
Say no. Say that's not going to make me happy. That's possibly going to destroy my life and destroy my family and everything else.
Looking back, is there anything that either your son shared with you, or you looking back, you realize some signs that maybe you missed, that the indicators were out there early on, that as a parent, you just were not aware of, but looking back, maybe you should have seen or could have seen?
Absolutely. I should have seen that my son had that gene for addiction, and it runs deep in the family. And I didn't pay attention to that. An educator, I didn't pay attention to that. Kevin's family has got alcoholics all through it. And some of them became drug addicts, and some of them died before he did. And yet, I thought he'd be okay. Like I said, if I knew he was smoking pot every day in high school, and listen, a lot of people say to me, well, how'd you miss that? How'd you miss that, Coach? Pot smells pretty strong, right? How'd you miss that? I wasn't looking for it. I thought everything was going okay. I wasn't on top of it. Yeah, if I know what I know now, okay, I'm going to be paying attention to that real carefully. I just don't know if it would have made a difference. I don't know, but it's worth trying.
Yeah, it's interesting because you think about, when Larry said his story, he said, but everything was going great. You see, the way it works with addiction is experimentation, social use, misuse, abuse, and dependence. So a lot of people will experiment with it, and I remember the first time I smoked a cigarette, oh my God, my head was spinning, I wanted to throw up, I never touched it again. There were other people that smoked cigarettes and they liked it and they kept going. Some people, they go over to socialization, they like to have a little wine with dinner, they like to enjoy it, fine, no problem. But there are some people who from there go over to the next level. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because often, like happened in Larry's case, you don't see a problem in the earlier stages. Most of the times when families or loved ones come to realize that something's going on, it's been happening for a long time. It's no fault of the family member because they're still able to function depending on what the substance is. Often they're abusing a substance, but they're still able to function. And then once some stuff, and remember on top of that, just like for the addicted person going through denial, families go through denial. It's painful for me to think that my son is struggling with something. No, he's a great student. He's a great athlete. It's not him. And unfortunately, things keep happening. And then eventually it hits me in the face. But when I look back here, right, you say, wow, that's what that was. But at that moment, you don't see it. Thank you for coming out, folks.
Thank you.